Razer Phone 2 is not the phone for everyone. It forgoes 2018 trends like slim bezels, thin chassis, and notches in favor of a blockier industrial build, a 120Hz LCD display, and a customizable glowing RGB logo. It's the phone built by gamers, for gamers, and has gaming at its core, but is it really the next ultimate mobile gaming powerhouse, or yet another ambitious attempt worth nowhere near its $800 retail price? The Razer Phone 2 fixes a lot of these standout issues from the company's first phone, but it's still full of compromises and trade-offs. It's now got an all-glass back, wireless charging, a new camera system, and a brighter display. The core design of the Razer Phone 2, though, remains largely unchanged from last year. It still retains a square, blocky build that stands out from the other flagships on the market, though that's not always a good thing. The addition of the glass back makes the phone feel more premium, but it's slippery, and the phone's block-like shape and sharp corners make it a bit uncomfortable to hold. It's even got an RGB logo on the back that can light up, and you can use the software to control what you want it to show. It can even show custom colors for notifications, though I didn't really find myself using it all that much, though I will say that some in the office really do like that little extra touch. And it's also worth noting that although the screen size on this phone is only 5.7 inches, the phone is quite large, coming in at roughly the same footprint as the 6.5-inch iPhone XS Max. It's definitely not a small phone. But once you really sit down and use this phone for what it was built for and what it was intended for, you can see that the Razer Phone 2 really can shine. The combination of the Snapdragon 845 processor and 8 gigs of RAM makes this phone fly through anything that I threw at it, and that 120Hz display made everything feel even faster. It makes navigation quick, scrolling super smooth, and made games feel super responsive. From the lightest to the most taxing of applications, I noticed very few instances of a stutter or frame drops during games. For the most part, the phone is very snappy and games were very responsive, and thanks to those stereo speakers on the front, I found gaming and content consumption to be extremely immersive. The top and bottom bezels on this phone are massive, but they do serve a purpose, housing stereo speakers with Dolby Atmos technology built in. And I was honestly a little bit skeptical, but I have to say that after using them for a while, they do sound really, really good. Standard YouTube videos sound pretty good and get fairly loud, but what really sets these speakers apart from the competition is when you're sitting down and watching a movie. The separation of audio channels, the clarity, and just the little sounds you hear while watching movies or TV shows from the left or the right really showcases how big of a deal these speakers are. And as good as they are though, I can't help but wonder why Razer did not put a headphone jack somewhere on this phone. There certainly seems to be room on both the top and the bottom, so that remains kind of a mystery to me. I also can't really end this section without coming back to performance just for a quick second. Though I didn't experience any sluggish performance on the Razer Phone 2, the phone does get noticeably warm under load. And Razer says they're using an all-new vapor cooling chamber to cool down the internals of this phone, but it still gets pretty warm after a few minutes of PUBG Mobile, or even just sitting on the wireless charger charging. It's no deal breaker, but definitely something I wanted to mention and make sure you guys are aware of. I really like the 120Hz high refresh display, but it is a compromise in some cases. The trade-off you're getting for that high refresh rate is that you're getting an LCD panel instead of an OLED one. In its defense, it's actually a pretty good LCD panel. It's honestly one of the best that I've tested, and after adjusting some color and some settings, it can look fairly vibrant too. I found it looked great during gameplay or browsing the web, but not having the deep blacks, the brighter display, or the more contrasty look found on OLED phones, it was a little bit disappointing, especially when you can get a phone with an OLED screen for a very comparable price. For some, this may be a big deal, for others, not so much, but what you do lose on that OLED quality, you gain with that super high refresh display that is great for gaming. Another sacrifice you are making on the Razer Phone 2 is with the cameras, and the camera on the last generation Razer phone was a pretty big letdown, and though the optics are better on the Razer Phone 2, the photos and videos from this camera system are still just a bit bland. Photos in almost every situation came out looking okay, definitely passable. I just found they lacked a little bit of saturation, contrast, and sharpness. They just don't pack the punch that you may be expecting. For the $800 retail price point of this phone, there are other phones out there, not gonna name names, that will give you a much better photo and video experience than you'll find on the Razer Phone 2. There are a few other quirks here worth noting that keep this phone from being the general consumer flagship that Razer really wants it to be. Wireless charging is a welcomed addition on this phone, but the phone doesn't really play nice nicely with most run-of-the-mill wireless chargers. The components for wireless charging sit a little low in this phone. And of course, if you pick up Razer's charger, it'll work just fine. It's built to accommodate this thing. But if you're not using Razer's charging, you pick up one from Amazon, especially one that lays flat, you're gonna have some issues really getting this phone to charge properly. You kind of have to get it right in the sweet spot. It may be a little annoying, definitely was frustrating for me. And charging is going to definitely be important because the battery life on the Razer Phone 2 is honestly pretty poor. I got about 4 to 4.5 hours of on-screen time before the battery was completely depleted, though with some mixed use off and on during the day, I could make it through an entire day, but not with much to spare. The phone packs a relatively large 4,000 mAh battery, but that high refresh display is going to be a big draw on that battery. I found I could improve battery life by dropping down the refresh rate from 120 down to 90 or even as low as 60, but seeing as one of the phone's biggest selling points is that 120 Hz display, I found it only fair to test battery life with that feature enabled. So after using the phone for the past week, here's my take to kind of wrap things up. The Razer Phone 2 really owns its gaming persona, and what it's built to do, at its core, it does really well. If you're all in on mobile gameplay or you like to consume a lot of Netflix and YouTube, you're going to really like this phone, especially when taking advantage of those built-in speakers. They do sound really good. But just understand the trade-off is that the non-gaming aspects of this phone, specifically the camera and the battery life, are going to suffer as a result. If you have a feeling the Razer Phone 2 is going to be a phone you're gonna love, you probably are going to love this phone and you understand the trade-offs you're making and those are worth it to you for what you get. But for everyone else out there, there are other phones on the market for this price that may not pack the same gaming punch or have that same RGB flair, but they are much more well-rounded, much more versatile, and are a better overall choice as your daily driver. But now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on the Razer Phone 2? Are you all about that high refresh rate display? Maybe you love a little RGB flare on your phone, or maybe you're upset about the lack of a headphone jack, especially since this phone is meant for content consumption. Seems weird to me there's no headphone jack. Leave a comment down below and let us know your thoughts. I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say about this $800 Razer flagship. And also while you're down there, be sure to click that button, subscribe to the channel, and also hit that bell so you're notified about upcoming videos so you don't miss any videos that we publish. And give us a thumbs up because we appreciate it. And we'll thank you in the comments for doing so. All right, guys, I am Robert Rosenfeld from Techno Buffalo. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.